So, all the students out there, if you are preparing for business subject A levels and you're willing to appear in May June 2025, so this video will basically cover how to write answers in paper 2 for business AS level. We have been making a lot of videos in this particular series where we talked about the time management of paper 1, the answering techniques of paper 1, the time management of paper 2, and now you are into this video in which we will be discussing how to write answers in business AS level paper 2. As discussed in the time management video, I just showed you the structure and how to manage time. You can also just go back and just see that video. Also, if you want to understand how to manage time, because this video is not going to talk about time. This video is going to talk about how to write your answers in paper 2. So as you can just see on your screen right now, we will be using this question of delicious cocoa. This is one of the cases that might just pop up. This is just like the type of case that you might see in your business paper 2, and you'll have two cases like this one, this delicious cocoa. And as you can see, there are 4 questions: part A, part B, part C, and part D. So there are 4 questions. And this A part 1, let's just start with A part 1. Once you have started the exam, once you have read the case study, let's say if I would be a student and I'm in the examination, I would be just going through what Delicious Cocoa does, how many employees they have, what business they are in, what industry they are in. I would just read the case properly. And then when I just go into this question part, let's say if I go into A part 1, which asks me to identify one element of triple bottom line. So how do you write this one marker? One of the major problems that I often see is the students would be just writing a one-word answer. You are not allowed to write a one-word answer in this part of the question. You have to write a proper statement. One word won't make sense, right, to the examiner. So you have to write a proper sentence. You just have to write maybe, let's say, one of the elements of a triple bottom line is the environmental objectives that a business would work towards. Let's say a proper statement that should make sense, and that's it. I don't need to explain it further. I just need to write one proper statement, and you'll always get this one marker in this part of the question. And this A part 2, as you see on your screen, A part 2, this is a 3-mark question, and it asks you to explain the term added value. This A part 2 of paper 2 will always be of 3-marker. It is always going to ask you to explain some of the terms, such as in this situation, it's asking you to explain the term added value. So it can ask you to explain any other terminology of the business course. In this part of the question, what you need to do is you just write one proper paragraph. You don't need to write an introduction paragraph. You don't need to write any other thing. Just one proper paragraph in which you explain this term in 2 to 3 statements. You have to write 2 to 3 good quality statements about the term added value or any other terminology that might be asked from you in the exam. So you have to just think of 3 statements. Let's say added value is calculated by the formula selling price minus the cost of material. These are the strategies that a business could use to encourage the customers to pay a better price. This could be done through improved packaging, through branding, through new advertisement campaigns. I have to write 2 to 3 good quality statements in one proper paragraph. That is it. That's how you write A part 2, the 3-marker. All right, so this is your A part, and let's now just talk about the B part. As you see on your screen, B part is now divided into 2 further subparts: B part 1 and B part 2. B part 1 is asking you to calculate the expected labor productivity in 2023. So if you want, this B part 1 will always be some sort of calculation. 90% of the times, B part 1 will be some sort of calculation. And whenever you are into this question and whenever you are into this part, you have to write the formula. Make sure you do write the formula, because the formula do contains marks also, right? So you need to write the formula, you need to show your workings, and then you need to write your answer, right? You just don't directly write the answer. You write the formula, you show the workings properly, and then you write your answer. And whatever your answer is, do not forget to mention the unit. Let's say if it's a percentage, if it's $1,000,000, if it's whatever unit is actually there, you have to use that unit as well when writing your answer. And if the calculation gets really tough, you still need to try that calculation. Try not to skip this part. Try to just write the formula maybe to get 1 mark out of it. But this is generally a straightforward calculation based question, and this could be something from the course also, and it might be a calculation something from the case also, maybe to calculate a percentage change or something. It could be a calculation that you would have already studied. It could be a calculation that you just see in the exam at this part. So you have to get ready for that particular calculation part, right? And B part 2. B part 2 is again of 3 marker, as you can see. And this B part 2 now will generally be based on the calculation that you have done in B part 1. It could be based on the calculation you have done in B part 1, or it could be something else. But when you write a B part 2 answer, it's again a 3 marker question. You don't need to write any introduction paragraph. You need to write your answer in one proper paragraph. You need to state your point, whatever your point is. Let's say in this B part 2, so explain one reason why labor productivity is important to DC. So you just need to think of one reason that why labor productivity is important, such as it would help me control the average costs, right? So I think of the point, I state the point very clearly and precisely, and I have to explain that point, and I can just again think of what do you mean by this point that it helps me to control average cost, and why would this be important to this business actually, this case DC. You have to refer back to the situation now in B part 2. In A part 1, in A part 2, there is no need to refer. You can refer back to the case, but there is no mandatory requirement to it. But in B part 2, you have to refer back to the case that why this point that you have stated and explained is applicable will impact the business situation, the context that you're talking about. If you just write the generic answer, general answer, then it's not going to give you the full mark, because now you have to get the application marks in this B part 2. All right, it should be a one proper paragraph, state your point, explain your point, try to connect back to the case that how that point is actually going to impact this business in this situation. All right. And if you talk about C part, this C part, as you see this one, it's a 8 mark question, and it will ask you to, let's say, if I read this one, analyze 2 ways DC can motivate young people to work on its farms. So it's asking you about 2 ways in which DC can motivate young people. It's always going to be analyze. It's always going to ask you 2 points, and 90% of the time is always going to be for 8 marks, right? And for this particular question, for 8 marker question in paper 2, you have to write an introduction paragraph, and then you have to write 2 main paragraphs for it, right? An introduction paragraph, and the 2 points should ideally be divided into 2 main paragraphs. And in introduction paragraph, let's say if I am a student and I'm attempting this question, so I would obviously define motivation, because that's the keyword I see in this question. I'll define whatever key term I have in introduction part where I could get 1 knowledge mark out of it. So I write a very, very high quality introduction, a very, very high quality definition. I try to make sure that I don't lose mark here. And in the 2 main paragraphs, now you have to think of 2 main ways or 2 main points. In this situation, the 2 main ways that DC can use to motivate the young people on its farm. You think of 2 main points, and you create 2 paragraphs separately for each point. In one paragraph, you write 1 point and you explain that point very, very well, right? Let's say one of the ways in which DC can motivate young people is to increase their salaries, let's say, right? So that's the point that I'm going to state. And I have to explain that point using that BTL technique that I've always been talking about in my lectures and in my videos in the past. Because B stands for because, T stands for therefore, and L stands for leading to. Let's say if I write that one of the ways in which young people could be motivated is through increasing their salaries. This is because when the salaries are increased, the employees will feel more financial security. This is because they would probably feel more safer when they are at their jobs, because they would be getting good amount of money. They could afford a better lifestyle. This is because it's actually going to motivate them. Therefore, why would it impact the business? Therefore, when the young people would be motivated, they would be willing to work harder, they would be willing to be more creative, they would be willing to be more productive, and probably the absenteeism might also go down. And what are the consequences leading to? This would actually lead to, let's say if that the best part would be I could just connect back to the case now. The consequences could be connected back to the situation. I have to make sure that I actually stay in the context in each paragraph. I cannot just write a generic or a bookish answer. Again, let's say in this situation, if you have read the case, they were planning to open a new factory. So I could be like that. If the young people are motivated and if they're willing to be creative, then the new initiatives taken by this company, such as opening of a new factory, could be executed in a much more better way, because the staff would be motivated and willing to work harder for that purpose. So I can actually, the point is, whatever question you get in the C part whatever question you get in this 8 marker, you introduce and then you write 2 main paragraphs. You state the point. You can use BTL technique to explain that point, and then you have to make sure that you connect back to the case. The more you talk about the case, the more you actually give the context, the examiner would like it more, because as an examiner, the examiner just not wants you to learn the book and just go and paper to exam. The examiner really wants you to be ready for the real practical world, and the examiner wants to see that answer where you actually show your understanding rather than just your rote learnings, right? So yeah, that's for 8 marker. And if I talk about this 12 marker now, this is the biggest question of our each case. And for 12 marker, it's evaluate. You'll always get 12 markers, and in which you will get the some evaluation thing. And this is generally a two-sided discussion. This is generally a question where a decision or an opinion will be required from you. And let's say in this particular question, evaluate whether DC should grow its operations by opening its new cocoa processing factory. So it's asking you that whether this business should go ahead with this new factory or it should not go ahead with this new factory. So it's for D part, for 12 marker, you write an introduction paragraph, you write 2 main paragraphs, and then you write a conclusion paragraph. Introduction, 2 main paragraphs, and then a conclusion paragraph. In introduction, again, I'll have to define some of the key terminologies. Let's say here it's talking about growth, and I can define growth in the introduction part. And then I have to write 2 main paragraphs, and then I have to write a conclusion paragraph, right? And in first paragraph, I can probably write in favor of the statement that they should actually go for this new cocoa processing factory and what could be the possible advantages for it. In favor, I can write 1 point or 2 points. 1 point very well explained, or if I feel like the content is not enough, then maybe I can add the second point in this too. But 1 point very well explained could also be the good thing, because whatever point you write, you have to use the BTL technique to explain that point. In paragraph 2, you write against the statement, maybe that no, they should not go for this cocoa processing factory because the management could be a problem, this economies of scale could be a problem. Whatever point you think that is the right point, you write the against paragraph, very well explained. Again, use that BTL technique for whatever point you state. And then in the last, you write a conclusion paragraph. This conclusion paragraph is one of the most important paragraphs out of all the parts that you have written, because this conclusion is generally, there's a myth generally that conclusion is just the last paragraph and it's a summary of the entire answer. No, conclusion paragraph is the most important paragraph in this D part. It holds the most amount of marks, and you need to have a proper practice of how to write conclusions. And I'll tell you the structure. Obviously, first you give your opinion that what do you think is the right thing to do for DC in this situation. Let's say whatever question it is, you'll have to give your opinion that what do you think that whether they should go for this new cocoa processing factory or they should not go for this new cocoa processing factory. You have to write your opinion, and you have whatever your opinion is, it can either be in favor or against. Opinion is never wrong, but you have to justify that opinion. You have to think of a very high quality point when you justify your opinion. This is the point where most of the students lose marks. I'm telling you with experience that this justification part is the part where the students would just lose marks, right? So you have to think of a very high quality justification. And let me tell you a bit of a technical point, but that's going to help you in writing answers. That whenever you're writing your conclusion paragraph, whenever you're writing the last paragraph of this 12 marker, so there are 2 types of points basically. Number 1, there's a knowledge point, and number 2, there's a situational point. Number 1, there is a knowledge point which you would have learned from the book, and number 2, there's a situational point where you would have read the case and you would have got that point on the spot in the exam, right? Then let's say if I write yes, they should open the new factory because their brand name will improve. So now the brand name will improve is a bookish point. It's not something that I have read from the case. It's a generic point. It's not a situational point. And I cannot write a bookish point. Let's say example number 2. If I write, no, they should not go for this new factory because if you see the case, it's written already that they should not open this new factory because They do not have clearly motivated staff. They're out of their finances. And how can they actually finance if they do not have any retained earnings? It's mentioned in the first paragraph, if you see, that they do not have any retained earnings. Now I can refer back to the case, and I didn't know beforehand that they did not have any retained earnings. I didn't know beforehand that their staff is not motivated. If I write they should not go for this cocoa processing factory because they do not have retained earnings, they do not have enough finances, that is an example of a situational point now. Because I didn't know that the DC did not have retained earnings from the book, right? In my last paragraph of 12 marker, in the justification part, ideally I should be using, or we should be using, as a student, you should be using the situational points, not the knowledge points. The knowledge points can become part of the para 1 and para 2 of this 12 marker, but the knowledge points cannot become part of this last part or last paragraph. You have, ideally, I always recommend my students that whenever you are attempting these 8 markers and 12 markers, you should actually plan your answer before writing. You should actually plan that what you're going to write in para 1, what you're going to write in para 2, and what in 12 marker, what you're going to write in your opinion and what the justification will be. Maybe you can use a pencil or a pen on your question paper on the case, and you can just write down what your answer would be, and then you start writing. That's always a better approach. And again, there is no right and wrong answer in business subject. Remember this. There could be multiple answers. Let's say if I'm in a class of 50, I get 50 answer scripts and they would be all different. Every student just comes up with a very different answer. So do not just try to have a mindset that I would write the perfect answers that just matches the marking scheme. No, your answers could be completely different from any other student, but yet it might be still an A grade answer, right? So it's not about writing the perfect answers that matches from the marking scheme. Every student can have very different understanding. Every student can have a very different opinion, and every student can come up with a very different justification. There is always a right answer in business. There's not a right and wrong answer. Wrongs are like Q graders, but even if I write the right answer, I can get a D grade, maybe because it's not of a very high quality. And I can get an A grade for the same answer if it's of a high quality explanation. So the point is, you have to focus on the quality of answers, the quality of explanation. You just don't have to think whether the point is right or wrong. You have to think of how do I explain that point. That's always a better approach for your business paper 2 exam. And again, you just have 45 minutes, as I talked about in the time management video. You have 45 minutes to answer this question. There are a lot of thought points that I just gave in this video, but you cannot just implement all of them. I've just given you the maximum possible things that you can think of in writing answers. And this is just a framework for your mind that would help you to craft your answers well. Again, there is no rule, there are no mandatory requirements. You can always change, you can always be flexible enough with your answers. And again, the structure that you see on this screen, the DC one, again, this is not a mandatory part. 99% of the times, this is what the examiner does. Even if the examiner wants it, he or she can just change the structure entirely. It will not happen. I'm sure it will not happen. But the point is that as a student, you should be ready and be flexible enough that even if some part of the question change, maybe the 8 marker part can be switched with a 12 marker part. Maybe the B part could get straight for 6 marks. Maybe. I'm just talking about maybes, but just try to be open minded and be flexible enough and adapt whatever the thing is. But you won't just get any change. And once you follow the videos, once you follow our probably course packs, once you study well, once you become part of our WhatsApp support groups, you will probably be well prepared for your examination. And we wish you best of luck for your learnings, for your practice, for your upcoming examinations. And if you want, you can just reach out to us through our email, which is businessbykothari@gmail.com. You can also WhatsApp us on our number that you can just see right on the screen. And you can also maybe just start studying because the time is closed and the exams are closed. So just start to get prepared for exams. Best of luck. Bye bye.